Hey guys, Brandon with Flyin Miata. Today we're going to give you a sneak peek into our NC Turbo Kit. So when we decided we wanted to do an NC Turbo Kit, we started at the very beginning. And that's not where do things go, what kind of turbo do we use, that's what are our goals. So our goals are pretty straightforward. Has to be durable and reliable, just like our NA and B turbo kits, and ND for that matter. It has to be 100% emissions compliant, which meant retaining the stock cat, because if you delete a cat, it is illegal in all 50 states. It has to have the best performance possible. So quick spool, the most power possible on a stock internals engine. So easy. Has to be an easy install. So there's going to be some work involved, but we want to minimize that as much as possible. It has to be as close to stock as possible. Sounds a little contradictory, but by having a car that's as close to stock as possible, it has a stock battery, it has a stock battery location, all of that fun stuff. It's going to make the car as easy to deal with and live with as possible, especially for street, but also for track. It also has to be economical. Economical does not mean cheap. So we are not aiming for the bottom of the market and the cheapest possible thing, because that's not going to be durable or reliable or legal or that quick, probably. It has to be a reasonable price point. It can't be very expensive, but we're not looking for the bottom of the barrel either. So with all of that in mind, we were able to establish a few specific things that we needed to have in order to achieve those goals. So now that we have our goals outlined, how do we get there? Well, we've been turbocharging Miatas ever since there have been Miatas, so we've got a few decades of experience. The Garrett turbocharger is what it's built around. Garrett makes an extremely reliable turbo. There's no questions, well, this one's cheap and maybe it'll work. It just works. We have a ductile cast iron exhaust manifold that's custom designed by us for this application, for the best flow possible, but also the best durability possible. We have another ductile cast iron outlet for, again, the best fitment, the best durability, and the best flow as well. So we have custom formed silicone hoses. Custom formed silicone hoses are awesome for turbo kits. They're extremely reliable, they're extremely durable, they are very easy to install, and everything fits right. They have the least number of potential failure points, as in joints, as possible. So they make a huge difference to the kit. And then, an air-to-air intercooler, because it's one less thing to maintain versus water to air. Water to air can heat soak. There's all sorts of reasons in there. Now that we have our goals and we have the kind of high points of the development, now it's time to actually start putting parts in cars and seeing exactly where everything fits. So this is what we ended up with. So chasing the air through the system starts with the air filter right here. So the air filter will be enclosed in an air box that we haven't done quite yet. So it gets cold air. It's a straight shot, very straight shot, into the compressor, into the turbo. So as little loss there as possible. We've got custom formed additions here that make, again, the install super easy. So your PCV is here. We're probably going to change that, but if it's right here, we will definitely use our high quality sleeving. And you have custom formed pieces for the bypass valve. It's very easy to install, fewer failure points, all that kind of stuff. Goes in the turbo, makes all sorts of pressure and therefore ultimately horsepower. So we need to get it to the intercooler. Now we want to get it to the intercooler in as short and straight of a routing as possible, but we had some limitations, and one of the major ones and the biggest headache was the stock battery. So we were not willing to compromise on the stock battery. We didn't want to put a small battery or an expensive battery, a battery that doesn't work if it's a daily driver or if it's in the winter or whatever. So we figured it out. We moved the battery over slightly. It will be bolted down solidly for actual functional cars. And you can see that the hose just kind of kinks slightly around the turbo and then straight into the intercooler here. Intercooler is a pretty straightforward air-to-air. So it comes through here. The only chassis modification that's required is a hole right here. Very easy to drill. And the bumper is very easy to get off of these cars as well. So straight down into the intercooler, nice solid air-to-air intercooler, custom cast end tanks, solid bracket in there, and then out through the top. It comes out of the top and goes through the mass airflow over here and then into the throttle body. So the turbo and the outlet end up pretty close to the brake lines over here. We're working with DEI to develop a custom solution that's going to make sure that everything is properly protected there and good long-term reliability for both street and track use. So on the exhaust side of stuff, it will follow the flow through again as well. So it starts with, again, our ductile cast iron manifold. So this is how we did our development work, but since we don't have an extra one to show you, so this is what the manifold looks like. You can see it has nice flow through everything. It has a little bit of a kink right here so that we have room for the oil drain to make sure that the center section of the turbo is oriented properly, because if the center section is anything more than 20 degrees off of horizontal, you have issues with thermal siphoning from the coolant because it's a water-cooled turbo, oil coking because the oil doesn't properly drain out of the turbo and all that kind of stuff. That's straight from Garrett. But big passages in there, matches up with stock stuff, good flow, all of that. So from there goes into the turbo, and then it comes into the outlet. Now the outlet is a pretty weird shape. I am not going to argue with anybody that says so. So it is a weird shape so that we can maintain the best flow possible and the best clearance on the chassis possible while retaining the catalytic converter. Because again, the stock catalytic converter is necessary for emissions legality in all 50 states. So this is kind of hard to photograph. So what we've done is we have designed the outlet so that there is a constantly increasing cross-sectional area so there's more flow. So where if you look at the outlet from right here, it looks pretty narrow here, that's because it's very wide here. And this is kind of sharp in here, but there's a nice big radius back here. And it snakes around everything, and we're able to do this really weird geometry because of cast iron. And it snakes around and ends up at the cat. So the way the cat works, the way kind of the rest of the exhaust system works, if you will, is the kit will include either this piece right here, so you can cut the top half of your entire stock header off and weld this piece on so that you're saving somewhere around $1,000 by not having to get a new catalytic converter. Or if you have more money than time, we will provide a complete assembly of this to you. So you can bolt it on for a little more money, or you can chop your parts off and then weld it and bolt it on to save money if you have more time. So this is a 4-inch V-band. You'll notice the clamp is missing. We haven't received that quite yet, but that's a 4-inch V-band right there. So, and then from there, it's a stock cat. So obviously anything that bolts to the stock cat will also bolt to this. So a lot of people have done 2.5 swaps on their NCs for good reason. So the 2.5, that swap is probably not legal, technically speaking, emissions-wise. This turbo kit is not approved for use on the 2.5, so it's not legal for use on the 2.5. That said, as long as the top of the engine on your 2.5 is located in space in the engine bay in the exact same location as the 2.0, then it should work fine, because the only thing that's going to happen is that your engine block is a little bit longer, and there's enough room here for that, and the bracket that we have for the bottom of the cat will account for that difference. So we cannot give you 100%. That is up to you, but it should work just fine as long as you follow those rules. So what's the timeline? That is an excellent question, and not one I can really give you a solid answer on. So the hope is to have it available by mid-2024. Realistically, we're not going to release anything until we're 100% confident in it. That means reliability, that means performance, that means track testing, that means driving it across the country multiple times. We're gonna do all those things to make sure that it is the best kit possible. And if that means pushing the timeline, that means pushing the timeline, because that is goal number one. It's not getting it to market as quickly as possible, it's getting the best possible product to market, and then as quickly as possible. So we're still trying to move very quickly, but job number one is a good kit. Okay, so that is the NC Turbo Kit, or at least where we are at this point. Subject to change as we discover things. So if you want to keep up to date on this kit and all of the other FM stuff, be sure to follow us on all the social things, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Stay tuned, and we will be back with more updates later.